I had just spent the last 9 weeks house sitting for some friends and taking care of their dogs. It was a good experience, albeit a bit long, and it helped me focus on some new goals and developments that I want to implement in my life. So then I was headed back to my apartment to get back to what my life was like before September 1st. The weather in Albania is generally quite nice. It can get cold, but the sun usually comes out on a very regular basis. Which means that even though the rain can be frequent, rainbows are almost just as frequent. And they typically shine through with such vibrance that you can't help but just sit and marvel. Earlier this year, some friends were cleaning up their house a bit and offered me a couple of chairs for my apartment. Because the couch that I have is over 20 years old and losing most of its cushion, I figured it couldn't hurt to have a couple more places to sit in my house. Something I'm frequently doing is changing the layout of my apartment. I want different focuses at different times, and the fresh new look makes me feel inspired. So on a rainy day, I started rearranging the entire apartment. I have a vision for this space, and I'm hoping I can make it come to fruition. Moving the furniture around is the first step, and over time, I will slowly be able to get it to have the vibes that I'm looking for. I want it to be a place that feels homey to me, and even during the colder days has life and vibrancy, but with a warm, welcoming atmosphere. And while it may look like a mess when I'm in the middle of things, I know that if I keep moving forward, things will get to where I want them. See if these work. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll do for now. And of course, I had to unpack and put away everything that I had brought back with me from the house, which turned into a much bigger task than I expected. I didn't realize how much stuff I had actually taken there. And now, I need to find a place to put everything in the new layout. Then I had to go to the store and grab some essentials because there's no food in the apartment. And I had to look at some fake plants, but there weren't very many worth getting. I'd much prefer to have real plants, but in certain corners of the apartment, it's easier for them to be fake because they would get no light. But this store did not have a good selection of fake plants, so I decided I would go to Tirana later in the week to get some better plants. Hopefully some real ones, but also some fake ones. But a friend of mine had propagated some of her plants, so she kindly gave me a small piece so that I can start growing it out myself. And that inspired me to do some propagating myself, of the few live plants I already have. And when I was moving offices around at work, I'd found this old map of Albania, and I asked if I could take it home. It was ripped in half through the middle, but with a little duct tape, I was able to get it back to a workable piece. And I just had to find a good place to hang it. And my friend Tommy came from Korcha to have lunch with some friends. Sitting in the restaurant, I got some inspiration for some wall art that I may want to have in my space. Also, Tommy had seen something in a shop in Korcha that I've been talking about wanting on my van, so he grabbed one and brought it to me. So I'll probably be heading back to Korcha sometime to have him help me install it, since I haven't learned how to do much myself. And then I went to Tirana to take care of some things. I've recently got a new phone, so I stopped by a shop so I could switch the regular SIM to an eSIM, which they wouldn't let me do in Pogradec. Turns out, because the eSIM is not registered into my name, but to my work, I need written authorization to be allowed to switch the eSIM. Life here can get frustrating. Oh well. Just keep moving forward, I guess. I also tried to find some fake plants so I could fill in some of the space in my apartment, which seemed like it might be difficult because half the store was already decked out in Christmas decorations. While they weren't super expensive, it was hard to find the exact kinds I was looking for. But I was able to find some that I think will work. So then it was back to Pogradec through the rainy mountains. And then I got to work, putting up some of the things I had bought, trying to give more color to the room, but without having to worry about keeping all of these plants alive. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew with live plants, especially with some big travel plans coming up. And clearly, I hadn't looked in a mirror yet that day, or maybe I would have noticed the wildness that was my hair. Looks nice. One more piece is coming, and then it'll look great. Then a couple mornings later, a few guys showed up to install my new heating system. The hope is that this unit will be more efficient and cost-effective than the previous method of heating, but it was the main piece I've been waiting for before fully situating everything in my apartment. It was perfect timing, too, because a couple of days later, it began. Bitter wind off the lake, and the first snowfall in the mountains. Winter is coming. Apparently, the dog that lives around my apartment had just had a couple puppies. One of them is significantly skinnier than the other, so I gave it a little bit of food one day. Now it won't stop following me anywhere I go. And someone from my work offered to give me a few living plants to help fill up my space. But as I walked out to the van to go pick them up, things went a little sideways. My first guess was that it was a dead battery. Not really sure how because nothing had been left on recently, but jumping the battery seemed like the best first option. Thankfully, I have a secondary battery that gets charged with the solar panel on the roof, which means that when my main battery dies, I can jump my own car. Embarrassingly, this is not the first time I've used this feature. And it turns out that was exactly the issue. So I was soon on my way to pick up my new plants. On the drive back home, I could tell I had just missed a fiery sunset, but I was still able to enjoy the last flickers of light. When my van issue first happened, I texted Tommy, who has helped me on the van before. He suggested that I take the van for a long drive to fully charge the battery. So the morning after I had done that, I went out to see if it was dead again. With the van seemingly back to normal and live plants now in my house, I had some things to take care of. I had to go to the shop to grab a few things so that I could start planting the cuttings that I had propagated the week before.
See ya. Okay. Piat per vaso? Sedi. Che me march? Dua du de me march.
And it's these kind of little tasks that I really love doing. Putting to use knowledge that I've gained over the years and seeing things take shape in a tangible way. Thinking about the fact that this little piece that I'm sticking into some dirt could be a plant that grows for years to come. It's a good reminder that no matter how small something starts, it can always grow to become significant. So the apartment was coming together nicely. There were still a few things that I'm hoping to find somewhere in the country, but what it is now is miles of difference compared to what it felt like before. And apparently I spoke too soon, because the next night I went out to go spend some time with some friends, and things weren't looking good. So I texted my mechanic so he could give it a look, and it was just as Tommy and I had expected, a dying battery, but now it was confirmed.
You didn't break anything either?
Thankfully, I was able to get it replaced before I need to drive to the airport in a couple days.
Why do I have a parking? Look at that. That's bigger than the other one, I think. Like, it's physically bigger.
Yeah. Good quality.
And to cap everything off, Tommy invited me to a Thanksgiving celebration in Korcha with a handful of other Americans that live in the area. I've spent so many holidays alone since moving to Albania, and honestly, I've probably forgotten about more holidays than I've remembered. But in the last few years, I've been trying to appreciate the end of the year holidays more, and this was a good place to start, which will just continue with my plans for Christmas. And boy, are those going to be exciting.
Is that turkey? Wow. I didn't know they made turkey at this time of year.
So I drove home through the cold night in my van that somehow can make it through anything, feeling thankful for all the people that have helped me over the past few weeks, from giving plants to installing heating units to celebrations full of good food. I couldn't think of a better way to end this week before my big trip coming up. Thanks for sticking with me, I'll be back soon.